How to make rosary beads. To work out where to do your first knot, place the string along the left side of the instruction sheet, and that length is the distance in where you start the first knot. Place the string in your left hand between the index finger and your thumb. Wind the string over the top of the tool. Now carefully wind it back over the string itself towards your hand. Keep winding 5 times. Then change your grip carefully so that your finger is holding the knot. Take the long end of the string that you've been using and push it through the groove of the tool, through the knot, away from your hand, and pull it all the way through. Once you've done that, you can slide the knot off and then it can stay on the table on itself. Now if you're careful, you can move the knot to the left or to the right. In this case, we're just going to tighten the knot. And your first knot is complete. We're now going to add our first bead, which we do for the long end. We then do the same knot that we did before, this time holding the bead underneath our thumb and index finger. We now complete our second knot as close to the bead as possible. Notice the gap between the bead and the knot. We want to close that gap. This is an Our Father bead. We want there to be no gap. So we're going to need to take the knot off and then gently move the knot closer to the bead. And then we're going to tighten it against the bead. One of the special features of this knot is that you can do this, that we can move the knot before we tighten it. Once it's tight against the bead, we're ready to be able to add our other beads for our first decade. The Our Father bead has to be black, and now we're going to add the blue beads, which are we're going to add 10 blue beads, and then we're going to do the same knot as we did before. Now what is crucial is to get the gap right. We need the gap about half the length of a bead, or a whole length, not more and not too tight. Again, we carefully move the knot closer to the bead, and then we're tightening it, but making sure that we've still got that gap, and we're gradually tightening it until we've maintained that gap and it's all nice and. We are now going to add the next Our Father bead, do the knot nice and tight against it. We then will add the next decade, again with a little gap, and then another Our Father bead, again nice and tight, and then another decade, again with a small gap, and a final Our Father bead, nice and tight. This will give us 4 Our Father beads with 3 decades between them. We now are going to add 2 sets of 10 beads on both ends of the string. So it's going to give us our 5 decades. And then once we've added all of that, we're ready to do a double knot and bring our rosary together. You'll notice that with a double knot, you need to make sure you've got enough gap before you tie the double knot. You do it as you normally do it with the tool, but this time both strings are going to go round, and so you only need to go around 3 times, and then you place both strings through the gap. Again, tightening it carefully to make sure you have the gap between the knot and the beads. Now add an Our Father bead and do a double knot, and again this one can be tight. Once you've completed that, you can leave one string and just with one string add 3 Hail Mary beads, a single knot. This one can have a gap, but it's not as important. Then add one more Our Father bead, but don't do the knot yet. You will need to add the cross, and then we're going to do a special knot to finish off the rosary. So you turn the rosary around so that you're going to be working from the cross. You're going to have both strings next to each other and the tool next to those strings, and then you're going to complete a knot like you normally do, but this time it's going to wind around the tool and both strings in between the last Our Father bead and the cross itself. Now you have to just do this very carefully. Again, you're winding it neatly back towards the cross over both strings and the tool. go around about 5 times as you normally would, and then feed that string through the tool back towards the Our Father bead. Once that is fed through, then you can slide off the tool and then tighten your final knot. This won't tighten like the other knots have. It just be very careful as you tighten it back and forward until the whole knot is tight and it's neat. So it will take a little bit of work to get that knot fully tight, and it's important that that knot is really tight. Once that knot is tight, your rosary is complete, and it can then be glued, those 2 knots. The string will be cut and it'll be blessed, and the rosary will be fully done.